For over 40 years, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining has been the benchmark for psychological horror. A film that crawls under your skin and stays there. We remember the ghosts, the madness, the chilling isolation of the Overlook Hotel. But the terror you see on screen is only an echo of a much deeper, much more disturbing reality.
Come and play with us, Daddy.
The true horror of The Shining isn't in the story it tells, but in the story it hides. We're counting down the 10 weirdest and most terrifying facts from behind the scenes. A story of obsession, psychological warfare, and a nightmare born from reality. Number 10. The Artificial Nightmare. The film's terrifying climax is unforgettable. Jack Torrance frozen and lost in a snow-swept hedge maze. A labyrinth of ice and death, but this entire landscape of fear was a lie. In Stephen King's novel, there was no maze. The threat came from topiary animals, bushes trimmed into the shape of lions and rabbits, that came to life and attacked the family. Deemed too difficult and impractical to film with the effects of the time, Kubrick scrapped the idea and built his own personal playground of horror instead. The sprawling maze was constructed at a nearby airfield, and the blizzard that buries the Overlook wasn't snow at all. It was 900 tons of salt and crushed styrofoam. This creation of a completely artificial world, built solely to create a very real sense of dread, is more than just a piece of trivia. The fake snow and constructed labyrinth serve as a powerful symbol for the entire production. It demonstrates a director willing to manufacture a synthetic environment, not just for the camera, but for his actors. As we'll see, building an artificial hell to provoke genuine, authentic emotional responses, real fear, real exhaustion, real despair, would become a defining theme of the entire project. Number 9. The Author's Revenge. You might assume the author of The Shining, Stephen King, would love the film adaptation of his work. You'd be wrong. The production was marked by a cold war between the two creative giants, a fundamental clash of vision that left a permanent and possibly vengeful scar on the final movie. King saw the story as a tragedy about a good man's gradual descent into madness, a victim of the hotel's external supernatural evil. He even wrote his own screenplay, but Kubrick tossed it aside without a glance, reportedly calling King's writing weak. King, in turn, was deeply disappointed with Kubrick's changes. He felt casting Jack Nicholson, already famous for playing unhinged characters in films like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, ruined the suspense of a gradual breakdown. He also called the film's version of Wendy one of the most misogynistic characters ever put to film, arguing she was just there to scream and be stupid. But Kubrick may have gotten the last word. In King's semi-autobiographical novel, Jack Torrance drives a red Volkswagen Beetle, the same car King drove in real life. In the film, the Torrance family drives a yellow one. But in one brief, seemingly random shot early in the movie, Kubrick shows us a red Beetle, completely crushed beneath a semi-truck. A coincidence? With a director as meticulous as Kubrick, many fans don't think so. They see it as a cinematic middle finger. The crushed car is not just an insult, but a powerful symbolic act. Kubrick is visually killing the idea of Jack Torrance as a tragic hero and replacing it with his own, far bleaker vision of innate human darkness.
Hi, Lloyd.
Number 8. The Overlook in Flames. The Overlook Hotel was meant to be a place of psychological combustion, where a man's sanity burned away. In a terrifying case of life imitating art, the set itself literally went up in smoke. In January 1979, near the end of the grueling shoot, a massive fire tore through the soundstage at Elstree Studios, completely destroying the Colorado Lounge set. The blaze, which was described as an 11-alarm fire, was likely caused by the immense heat generated by the powerful production lights used to simulate daylight pouring through the lounge's large windows. The damage was estimated at $2.5 million. For any other director, it would be a catastrophe. But Stanley Kubrick wasn't any other director. He was famously photographed laughing amidst the ruins. His wife, Christiane, later recalled that he found the disaster quite fun, because it gave him an excuse to delay shooting and rethink certain things. Kubrick's cheerful reaction reveals a chilling detachment. It demonstrates that real-world consequences, financial loss, production chaos, potential danger, were secondary to achieving his artistic vision. This mindset directly parallels the psychological pressure he was willing to place on his actors. Just as he saw the fire not as a disaster but as a tool for refinement, he saw his actors' genuine distress not as a human cost but as a necessary ingredient for his art.
I recall, and the roofs of all the four stages, which are complete composite sets, basically one built into the other. Mind you, Stanley, all he worried about was getting his sound from the sound transfer bay, so that didn't get burnt down. He wanted his sound removed quickly before anything happened to it. So.
Number 7. The Boy Who Knew Nothing. At the heart of the film's horror is 6-year-old Danny Torrance, a child plagued by terrifying psychic visions. But the young actor who played him, Danny Lloyd, was kept in a state of blissful ignorance throughout the entire production. To protect the 5-year-old who had never acted before, Kubrick went to extraordinary lengths to hide the fact that they were making one of the scariest movies of all time. As far as Danny Lloyd knew, he was just starring in a drama about a family living in a hotel. He was shielded from all the ghosts, gore, and psychological terror. In the intense scene where a frantic Wendy carries him through the hotel, she's actually holding a life-size dummy to avoid putting the child in such a stressful situation. The young boy had no idea of the true nature of the film he was a part of until he finally saw the finished cut a decade later at age 16. In a strange twist, one of the creepiest parts of his performance, the croaky voice and wiggling finger he uses for his imaginary friend Tony, was something Danny invented himself during his very first audition. Kubrick loved the unsettling mannerisms so much, he gave him the part and wrote it right into the film. This careful protection of the child actor proves Kubrick was capable of empathy. It was a conscious choice, a fact that makes his deliberate actions towards Danny's on-screen mother all the more chilling.
Tony, I'm scared.
Number 6. The Axe and the Ad-Lib. It's perhaps the most famous scene in horror history. The axe, the splintering wood, and the terrifying line.
Here's Johnny!
That line was never in the script. It was pure Jack Nicholson, who improvised it on the spot as a nod to The Tonight Show host, Johnny Carson's famous introduction by Ed McMahon. Stanley Kubrick, who lived in England and was completely unfamiliar with the American pop culture reference, almost removed it from the final cut. But the ad-lib is only half the story. When they first tried to film the scene, there was a problem. Jack Nicholson was too good with an axe. Having once worked as a volunteer fire marshal, Nicholson demolished the flimsy prop door in a matter of seconds. So the crew was forced to replace it with a real, solid wood door. Getting the scene right became an obsession for Kubrick. The sequence took 3 full days to film, and over 60 real doors were hacked to pieces before the director was satisfied. The on-screen rage was matched by sheer, repetitive off-screen destruction, a process that mirrored the film's theme of relentless, escalating violence.
Little pigs, let me come in.
Number 5. The Writing on the Walls. The Shining is a film that rewards obsession. Viewers who watch it again and again start to see things hidden in plain sight. Patterns and symbols that suggest the story of the Torrance family is a cover for something much larger and much darker. Many analysts believe the film is a coded allegory for the genocide of Native Americans. They point to the explicit line that the Overlook was built on an Indian burial ground, and the constant, deliberate presence of Native American art and symbols, like the Calumet brand baking powder prominently stocked in the hotel's pantry. They argue the film is a ghost story about the overlooked sins of America's past. Others see references to the Holocaust. They point to Jack's German-made typewriter and the recurring number 42. Danny wears it on his shirt. Wendy and Danny watch the film Summer of 42 as a chilling reference to 1942, the year the Nazis' final solution was put into full effect. Kubrick never confirmed these theories. He didn't have to. He packed the hotel with so much historical dread and deliberate ambiguity that it became a magnet for our own collective nightmares, transforming the Overlook into a symbol for all of civilization's buried atrocities. Number 4. The Impossible Hotel. The Overlook Hotel feels wrong. The endless corridors, the cavernous rooms, they create a powerful sense of disorientation. That feeling is not an accident. You feel lost because the hotel itself is a physical lie. Kubrick and his designers deliberately built the hotel set with impossible geometry, things that break the laws of physics. Take the manager's office. We see it's an interior room surrounded by hallways, yet from inside it has a large window looking out on the mountains. It cannot exist. Corridors appear from nowhere. Doors open into spaces that shouldn't be there. The film's own executive producer, Jan Harlan, admitted it was intentional, stating, "The set was very deliberately built to be offbeat. The audience is deliberately made not to know where they're going. It's a subtle, subliminal form of psychological attack. You may not notice it consciously, but your brain does. It understands that the space is wrong, broken. The hotel isn't just haunted by ghosts. Its very architecture is designed to make you feel like you're going mad right alongside the characters."
We had 4 presidents who stayed here. Lots of movie stars.
Royalty?
All the best people.
Number 3. The Real Room 217. The Overlook Hotel may be fictional, but its inspiration is very real. And the entire story of The Shining was born from a single night of real-life terror experienced by its author. In the fall of 1974, a young Stephen King and his wife, Tabitha, checked into the Stanley Hotel. They were the only guests. The hotel was shutting down for the winter, and as they ate dinner alone in the vast, empty dining hall, an idea began to form. They were given room 217, a room with a long history of real-life paranormal reports connected to a gas explosion in 1911. That night, King had a nightmare. He dreamt that his own 3-year-old son was running, screaming down the hotel's long, empty hallways, being chased and attacked by a writhing fire hose. He woke up in a cold sweat just an inch from falling out of bed. He got up, lit a cigarette, and stared out at the Rocky Mountains. By the time it was finished, he had the bones of the book firmly set in his mind. The global phenomenon of The Shining wasn't born from imagination alone. It was born from a father's primal nightmare, a deep parental anxiety that grounds the entire story in a painful human emotion. Number 2. The Ghost in the Photograph. Come play with us, Danny. Forever.
And ever. And ever.
It is the single most haunting image from the film. The twin girls in blue dresses standing at the end of the hall. But they were never supposed to be twins. In the novel, they aren't twins at all, just sisters, a few years apart in age. The film's own dialogue refers to them as being about 8 and 10. The idea to make them identical came during casting when Kubrick's assistant, Leon Vitali, was struck by their eerie presence, saying they reminded him of a famous, unsettling photograph by the artist Diane Arbus. The 1967 photo, titled Identical Twins, captures 2 sisters staring directly at the camera. Their expression is impossible to read, a mixture of innocence and something else. Kubrick, a former professional photographer himself, saw the innate power in that image and lifted it directly from the art world into his nightmare. The Grady twins are so terrifying because they weren't just invented for a movie. They were already a ghost, haunting a real photograph long before they ever stepped into the Overlook Hotel.
Come and play with us, Daddy, forever and ever and ever.
And finally, the #1 most terrifying fact about The Shining. The film's greatest horror wasn't a ghost. It wasn't an axe-wielding madman. It was a director. And his victim was the actress playing Wendy Torrance. Stanley Kubrick wanted a performance of pure, authentic terror from Shelley Duvall. And he was willing to do anything to get it. For over a year of filming, he subjected her to what can only be described as psychological torture.
Has it ever occurred to you what would happen to my future if I were to fail to live up to my responsibilities? Has it ever occurred?
He would reportedly isolate her on set, telling the crew not to sympathize with her or offer her any words of comfort. He criticized her every move, her line delivery, her performance. The famous scene where she swings a baseball bat at Jack wasn't filmed in a day. It took 3 weeks, and it holds the Guinness World Record for the most retakes for a scene with dialogue, 127. Duvall was forced to cry for up to 12 hours a day for months on end. The stress became so immense that her body began to break down. She suffered from nervous exhaustion, and her hair began to fall out in clumps. Angelika Houston, Jack Nicholson's girlfriend at the time, observed that Duvall seemed generally a bit tortured and that the boys were ganging up on her. What you are watching in The Shining is not acting. It is a document of a woman's genuine suffering. Kubrick didn't capture a performance. He engineered a breakdown. This fundamentally changes the film from a work of fiction into something far more disturbing. A record of real pain, packaged as entertainment. The film's darkest secret is that the ghost that haunts the Overlook Hotel is real. And it is the ghost of an artist's humanity, sacrificed for his art. In the end, the story behind The Shining is as layered and disturbing as the film itself. A story of a real father's nightmare, of impossible rooms built to confuse the mind, and of an actress pushed to the very edge of her sanity. The film ends with this photograph, suggesting that Jack has always been the caretaker, trapped in a cycle of violence. But the photo tells another story too. It reminds us that the horrors we create, whether on film or in life, leave a permanent stain. They become a part of the walls, a part of the history, waiting to be rediscovered. Forever and ever and ever.